still, I'm not breaking. I'm becoming what I feel.
Okay, so here we go, off and running. I'm so excited. Awaken Warriors podcast. General Curtis and Nicholas Curtis are here today, and we are doing a show that is extra special to me because this is going to save lives, and that's what we're here to do. General Curtis, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. Nick, how are you, buddy? It's good
I'm
to see you.
doing good. Yeah, good to talk to you again.
Yeah, I'm very excited. That's a pretty buck you got there in your picture, too. I like
thank
that.
you.
We may have to get into that story while we're recording, but let's get back over to General Curtis. General Curtis, tell me about your career. Tell me about your life. How did you end up as such a Hall of Fame general or military in Louisiana Guard? I think that's incredible. You were the first Hall of Famer I've ever met.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I had a very successful career, I guess, in the Louisiana Guard and Army because a lot of people took care of me. I started out as an enlisted soldier, joined in March of 1982. Louisiana had a program where they would pay for our tuition if we joined the Louisiana National Guard. And so it helped me get through college. Never intended to stay beyond my initial 6 years, but after I got into it, kind of started realizing that, it kind of clicked pretty well with me. And then I went through officer candidate school to receive a commission, which I received in August 1984. And my career just progressed, mostly because a lot of good people took care of me and probably made me look a whole lot better than I actually was. Never thought I would ever make it above the rank of captain. I figured that's where I would flame out, but was very fortunate to move through the ranks, command a lot of units, and ultimately become what they call the Adjutant General Louisiana National Guard, which is essentially the commanding general of our state National Guard.
Now, there's not a lot of pressure in managing 11,000 troops in Louisiana, is there? I mean, that's something. You sleep okay at night? I mean, how does that work?
Well, it was stress that went into it. Yeah, it was a large a lot of moving parts and pieces, and the last 20 years of it, the complexity was really intense because we were in the middle of war after 9/11. We consistently had soldiers, airmen deployed for 18 years anyway. And then on top of that, in Louisiana, when Katrina hit, and there were numerous catastrophic events that hit afterwards. So we were warfighting and then doing disaster recovery and catastrophic event recovery here in our state. So it was a very busy time. And, after I retired, all the stress knots left and the headaches left for the most part. And I was able to smile a little bit again.
Well, I would say Katrina is probably one of the biggest natural disasters to hit the United States ever. And you were in charge of all of that and the repair and the cleanup and the mess and all the things that had to be done. I mean, that was an absolute atrocity of what, can happen to a oceanfront city. And how did you manage that kind of, like, where do you start when everything's underwater and everything's destroyed? What do you do first? Like, what's the...
It boils down, and I was a deputy commander during it, but hopefully helped a little bit. The main thing you have to do starting out is set priorities. I mean, and you can't have too many. And our basic priorities was always first save lives, and then reduce suffering, and then protect property, in that order. And so when Katrina hit, the city flooded, and by the way, 13 parishes in other states, 13 counties were devastated as well. So we had people all over South Louisiana. But when that storm came through and the devastation came through, and we were okay until the levees broke and the city of New Orleans flooded. It was very much focusing on saving lives and reducing suffering. So we were out. Our units were out. In the communities in New Orleans and St. Bernard Parish, with boats, with helicopters, trucks, as far as we could reach in the water, getting people out of their homes and just trying to get them to high ground into some safety. And then we started just moving a lot of resources towards them. And, the Superdome became really the center of gravity. We evacuated Somewhere around 78,000 people out of the Superdome and downtown New Orleans within that first week. And when FEMA came through with the buses finally on Thursday, we were really able to kind of start changing the dynamics. But after you cleared the city out, now you got all the recovery efforts. You got to protect property. It was a multi-year process to help New Orleans and that greater New Orleans area try to get back to what I've always referred to as some level of normalcy. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I can't even imagine. I bet you didn't get a lot of sleep during that time. You were probably up around the clock, man. I
it,
mean,
it was
you got to pull the trigger on things and you got to make decisions. That would be a lot of work. I mean, that's probably arguably one of the most major catastrophes, natural disasters on America. And, to be a part of that, I'm in Florida, so obviously we have hurricanes all the time. And to
yeah
us, it's no big deal, but that was a whole nother level. That was on another playing field. Like you said, the levees broke, and that was really where it was at. Nick,
yeah
where were you at, Katrina? And tell us how you got to here. Tell us your
Oh
life
yeah,
story.
Katrina. Let's see. I was in junior high. I was in 7th grade.
but
That's you weren't real worried about it. You were getting
No,
sleep
no.
just fine.
Yeah, I was good. Just
So what?
wondering
Tell
where
us
Dad
about you,
was and
Nick.
when he was coming back.
Yeah, that's right. You probably didn't see a lot of him at that point in time, huh?
No,
He's out on
no,
the go.
definitely not. No,
Well,
I
hopefully
can
you
remember
understand
when he
now.
came home. His hair was a mess, and he just looked like he had been like homeless the whole time he was gone.
I was.
He looked a
You
mess.
were homeless. He was out there living with the people, trying to make a difference out there, and
Yeah.
I can't imagine that kind of pressure. Now, Nick, tell us your story. Tell us who you are, where you're from, all the good news, because we need to hear everything about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I guess he went first with his great history. Here's a whole lot of nothing impressive. So, I was in the National Guard from 2011 to 2017. So right after I got out in 17 was Hurricane Harvey. Started there and just kind of worked for the next several years on you know storm relief or whatever disaster relief. Worked pretty much everywhere from in the Gulf Coast, from Texas to Florida, and then from Florida up to New York. We did stuff, whether
Wow.
it was home inspections, being part of the actual rebuild process, debris removal, mold remediation, hauling campers for people to live in, all that good stuff. That's pretty much the extent of my background.
Yeah.
But then in 2024 came the head injury, which actually, you know, started the journey towards plant medicine.
Tell
So
us
I
how
don't know.
that happened. Is it something of a story you'd like to talk about, or is it just a
Yeah,
TBI that
yeah.
you don't
So
know?
just I was. It was April of 24. I was just doing yard work, trimming limbs and using the tractor to drag them to the burn pile, and the roll bar on my tractor. It was in the down position. I put it upright. Did not put a pin in it. The roll bar swung down, hit me in the back of the head. Lights out.
Ouch.
Um. So,
Jeez,
anyways,
you say yard work and tractor in the same sentence as if most people do yard work with tractors, but you have to remember most people yard work is like a little
okay,
small mower and a
yeah,
weed. You're like, yeah, just doing some standard, yard work. Had a 5 ton and a track forklift.
yeah. Well,
That
well,
sounds
it's normal
absolutely
around here.
horrible. Were you unconscious after you got hit, or was it something of
You
just
know,
the dizziness?
I don't really remember if I went unconscious or not, to be honest. I know my wife ended up coming home, took me to the ER. They did the CAT scan. No internal bleeding. So we just went into concussion protocol, which I've had plenty of concussions, head injuries in the past. Give me 4 to 7 days in a dark, quiet room, I'll be good as new. Um,
Yeah,
but in this
recovery.
case, it just a week went by, no progress. Couple weeks turned into a month, turned into a couple months, and I was in the exact same spot. And so finally, my parents and my wife, kind of give me and like, you're going to a professional. So end up going to Ochsner's down in New Orleans. Had a great neurologist, just fantastic. Can't talk good enough about him. But he worked with me, put me in physical therapy, got me on the steroid packs, and I was also doing some peptides on the side, trying to get better. And over the course of the next few months, started really seeing a lot of progress. I was finally got to the point where I was able to get back to work um, in early October of that year. So April to October, I was down and just trying to get better. And so October of 24, we had a truck incident where a big electrical malfunction with my truck. Moral of the story: Dad and I were standing, feet planted outside the truck. Leaned, I was leaned over the driver's seat. He was leaned over the passenger seat, and the curtain airbags deployed. Knocked both of us unconscious on the driver and passenger seat. Just, I mean, talk about a freak accident. Um, yeah. So luckily, my brother and brother-in-law were there. My brother dragged me out. Brother-in-law drags him out. We ended up going to the hospital, get checked out. So I go back to square one. You know, and yeah,
You barely got recovery, and then you're
I
right back to where you started.
I'm telling you, I was going back to work on that Monday. This happened the Saturday before.
Wow, are you?
Yeah,
You were so
yeah,
excited, everything was finally looking
yeah,
peachy and rosy, and then all of a sudden,
yeah.
what a weird thing to happen. The
Man,
curtain airbag.
yeah, and you know what? The only thing I can say about it is I'm so hard headed. God was trying to guide me to this medicine, but he just kept having to hit me upside the head.
First one
Yeah,
didn't get your attention. Second
yeah,
one did.
that's
You're
it.
like,
That's
you
it.
think you're going to work tomorrow? You're not going to work tomorrow.
No,
Watch this.
no.
I got something for you.
Yeah. So,
So that kind of started the whole path towards plant medicine, and obviously into
right.
the ibogaine and ambio sciences. And
Yeah, yeah. So I went right back into everything I was doing before, neurologist, physical therapy, peptides. Did that for a couple months, saw zero progress. And finally, the therapist they had me talking to told me, was like, look, it's time for you to, I think you've spoken something similar to this on one of your past episodes. Is, this is pretty much going to be the rest of your life. There's no getting better. And, he said that, I just, you know, then why try, you know? Um, so I hit that point and it was just like, I don't know. Yeah. So you're telling me I'm just gonna have slurred speech, blurred vision, have vertigo, can barely walk, if I can even get out of bed that day, like it's like living as a drunk. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, oh
So
yeah.
so I didn't see an issue with just self-medicating. If I'm gonna live as a
Mhm.
drunk, pretty much, let me have some drinks. So I hit it a little hard there for a while, but I feel like it was concealed because that's how I was anyway. Um, anyways, luckily, listening to Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan, they were talking about ibogaine on their podcast. That that's when you know flipped a switch in my head, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start doing some research on this. So doing research, doing research. I think, and then Joe Rogan, Governor Perry, and Brian Hubbard. Listen to their podcast and everything, and that's the one I ended up sending to Dad. But I can remember one day we were sitting at our hunting camp, and he just looks over at me one morning and was like, "How's your head?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to Mexico." You know? I heard about this
That
thing, and
wasn't the question, Nick. The question was,
yeah,
how's your head?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I gave him a quick rundown of it, and and then we all went our separate ways, and then we got back together that afternoon, and he, to my surprise, he just, we're going to Mexico.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
you know?
Yes, sir.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, blew my mind.
absolutely. Absolutely.
You
So that's
know? So,
amazing. General Curtis, you tell us about so you spent time overseas and you went to Iraq, yes, and tell us what you were feeling after you had the head injury as well. I'm sure your perspective is much different than Nicholas's, and I'd love to hear that perspective. Did you have anything happen service wise in the military that would would have been a precursor for it, or was this the one that got you as well?
Well, so I did. So, I probably have to go back just a little bit to actually 9/11. 2 days before 9/11, I took into what was called an engineer group at the time. Now it's an engineer brigade. On 9 September, 2 days later, the world changes, right?
Mm.
So we immediately, it was an engineer unit. Our engineers needed in Afghanistan for construction and mine clearing operations. So our first unit left in February of 2001. And from February until I retired, basically in January of 20, I lived under deploying soldiers into combat zones, either Iraq or Afghanistan. Deployed thousands of people. During my time in leadership, when I became what's the adjutant general, the commanding general of Louisiana Guard, my last 8 years from 2011 to 2020, I had to sign the final certification on our units in Louisiana that they were trained and ready to deploy to combat, knowing all too well, most people come home fine, but we would get people injured, and God forbid, when we had a loss over there. But what I saw through that almost 20 years was our soldiers, if they were physically injured, the VA and the medical facilities took great care of them. The military, if they had a hand injured or whatever, they would call in specialists and do whatever they needed to do to make that hand back as close to 100% as it could. It didn't matter the amount of time, it was no issue. But what people tried to do, but I think we collectively were very unsuccessful in the military and the VA, is soldiers that came home with PTSD, TBI issues. And so I watched this again for a long time, dealt with a lot of soldiers and their families that had issues when they came home from a combat tour. And I used to refer to it as a death spiral, because they would come back, couldn't readjust, and they would get into drugs or alcohol or start racing motorcycles, or you name it, anything high adventure, low drag, or anything to kind of numb their mental pain, if you will. But once they started in that cycle, then it became family issues, work issues, like I said, drugs, alcohol, and I used to tell our staff and our team, we got to find a way to inject ourselves in that death spiral and try to stop it and bring them out of it. And we didn't really have good solutions, although we tried very hard. And so on the one hand, it was as a senior leader, sending young kids in a lot of cases into harm's way, and knowing what was coming out of it and having to deal with that. My deployment to Iraq, I went over at the end of 2004 and then into 2005, and Iraq, and I was doing reconstruction all over the country. It was a dangerous place during that time. It was dangerous for a long time, so you didn't have to go very far to find yourself in some pretty bad situations. Came out of it with a couple of TBIs and probably experienced things that a lot of combat veterans do. And so when you come home from that, again, it's how do you do it? But for me, I was home a couple of months when Katrina hit, and went straight into Katrina, along with a lot of other guys that had just returned from a tour overseas. Went through that catastrophic event. Again, it was high pace. There were no right answers. It was, how do you try to take care of something as quickly as you can and get people safe? But that lasted for, the true Katrina recovery that I was involved in, or we were involved in, probably lasted at least 2 or 3 years. And so you didn't really have time to think about what you'd gone through when you're overseas. But after things kind of calmed down and went back to normalcy, then the PTSD type stuff and all the TBIs start really showing up. I just dealt with it for years because I was still in uniform, and my issues around PTSD was I really never had trouble going to sleep at night. It was staying asleep. I didn't like large crowds. I was constantly scanning. If I went to a restaurant, I had to see the door. Trust factors were way off the scale. And then from the head injuries, I mean, and a neck injury, I lived on Advil. I mean, I took it almost nonstop. And so, but I learned to, I guess, compensate over the years. And when Nicholas had his head injuries, like he said, we as a family were trying to do whatever we could to get him back to a good place where he could function as a father and then as a husband and then get into the workforce and do his thing, in his own business or whatever. And that was a challenge for a long time. His wife is a saint for all that she had to go through as we experienced this thing. So, when he brought up the ibogaine treatment and the MBO, and we knew it was kind of a last ditch effort to try to get him back to some level of normalcy. I mean, I was in as a parent. I told my wife, I probably told him, I don't care if it helps me or not. If it helps him, I'm going with him, and we're gonna do this thing. So I watched the Joe Rogan podcast. Nicholas and I talked a lot. I looked at a lot of other things, but as a parent, the answer was yes. It's just a matter of how quick we got there and the steps that we went through. So we got scheduled almost a year ago to today was when we went to Tijuana. And what we experienced with the ibogaine was harsh. While you're on the treatment itself, I mean, it's not fun. You throw up, and body hurt, and your mind's everywhere. And the next day we were drained, and then we did the bufo treatment, which was absolutely wonderful. But what I saw on Friday morning when we were leaving, getting ready to come home, I mean, I felt it myself. But what I saw with Nicholas was just absolutely amazing because we were standing out on the edge of the Pacific where our house was located. We were in, and there were 2 islands out in front of us, and there had been boats around the island the whole time, right? And Nicholas is standing there, and we're just kind of taking in the sunrise and all, and he goes, "Well, I'll be." And I was like, "What is it?" He said, "There's boats around those islands." I said, "There's been boats around those islands since we got here." And he said, "Well, and I can see the color. I can see the trees. I can see the dirt, the different colors, and I can read this billboard that's just down the hill from us." And then he stood around, and as the sun came up, he's looking directly at the sun without sunglasses on. And this is a guy you could make it dark enough for him before the treatment. And now he has on no sunglasses. And again, he's like, "I can't believe I'm looking at the sun and it's not hurting my eyes and killing my head." So I knew we had changed the dynamics at that point. Not only just for me, but I saw it in spades in him. So it was very life altering and a very positive experience. And that's why we're really kind of charged up about it.
Well, I think that's an amazing story, and I mean, you're absolutely right. The clarity that comes after you get that bufo treatment, and everybody loves the 5-MeO, right? Like that's the day of
Yeah,
like
right.
that's where you get all the love back that ibogaine took all your
Yeah.
life. Like I need some healing right here now. Can I have some healing? So it's a great follow up the next
Yeah.
day. Everybody. How did you like the sweat lodge? That's an interesting situation. That Scott and I were talking about that, and he was like, "Man, when I was in that sauna the first day we got there, he was like, I thought I was gonna die." He was, and it's intense, right? The detoxification process.
Yeah.
But you certainly pointed out something really important. I do agree. The people coming back with head injuries, PTSD, that they're getting a different set of treatment than people that have actual like loss of limbs or that kind of thing. And it's hard because even when you're somebody with traumatic brain injury, PTSD, etc., you start questioning whether or not you're just crazy. And you are like, am I making this up? Is this really happening? Like, how is it that I can't walk from here to 20 feet away without help? because I'm so dizzy. You know, I'm like, I feel the earth as it rotates right now. Like and it's like, whoa, okay. But you really do. You start questioning your own sanity, and then people start to say, oh, well, he's fine. No, he's not fine. He's not fine
No.
at all. And so I
Yeah.
think there's got to be a movement on that. First of all, second of all, kudos to you for adapting to all those things. I mean, you basically went out of the pot into the frying pan, no, out of the frying pan into the fire, coming back from Iraq, and then you right into Katrina. I mean,
Yeah.
that's 15 years of just constant stress. You're in fight or flight all day, every day, and then your own head injuries, your own PTSD. And I never ever could have. I can't imagine sending troops to war and not knowing whether or not they're coming home and whether or not you've got to go talk to their families. And so, to me, the fact that all of that you still set aside, and it was just about Nicholas and his recovery and what you could do to help him. So, I mean, that just says leaps and bounds about your character as well, too. I mean, that's priority first, right? And you got to
Yes,
do
sir.
God and family. So,
That's right.
and that's a beautiful thing. So, tell me, Nick, when you guys went down to Mexico, tell me how it went for you. Tell me what your experience was at first, and like
Yeah.
what happened with your dad. You got to tell us about Glenn while he was there, because he was obviously, I'm
Yeah.
sure, just handling it like perfectly, and you were probably just a mess. And
Well,
or
yeah,
was it
dude.
vice versa?
No, well, I know. I know. Before we even got on the airplane to fly to San Diego, I just remember like the last thing I said to my wife, which is horrible now thinking back on it. I was just like, "This better cure me or kill me," because there's no way I'm coming back and keeping on like this. And
Well, I
that's
think
just the
it
mindset
successfully
I
did
went in
both,
with.
right? And
What's
it
that?
successfully did both.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, no, we got to San Diego, stayed in the hotel where they picked us up at, drove into Mexico, and I mean, as soon as you get there, it's all right. Let's go talk. Everybody kind of share your story, what you're willing to share. If you don't want to share, you don't have to. Um, and then it's straight to the sweat lodge. And I should have listened to Slider. Um, he was our host there, and he told us put the bandana flat over your head, keep your top of your head from burning, and top of your ears. I didn't listen; it burned like hell. Uh, you know, and I mean, it's just man, you're in. I think we were in there for like 2 hours. They said it got up to like 195 degrees, I think, and you're just in there with the maraca. You're chanting, and yeah, I mean, hallucinating pretty much, like just you you're losing your mind in there, you just become something totally different. Such a tribal experience, and I'd encourage everybody, when you first get in there, you're kind of like, okay, what is this? But it, really get into it, and it really does help, with the preparation for what you're about to go through. um So, anyways, did that, and then we go back home for rehydration IVs. When you're the most dehydrated you've ever been in your life, and your veins are non-existent, that wasn't a fun experience. Anyways, so that was on Monday. Tuesday, have breakfast, get ready for your ceremony that night. Man, I don't. I can remember. We took I think it's 4 pills you take. First one you take, and then you wait 45 minutes, and then it's 15 minutes for each of the next ones. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what I was getting into. But I will say one thing that scared the absolute hell out of me before it even hit me was, we took them, and then we went upstairs, and you lay down on your mattress and everything. There's 6 of us on a mattress up there. One guy went up after his 3rd pill, and by the time I went upstairs after my 4th, this guy is standing in his underwear, drenched in sweat, just like, "My gosh, oh my god, oh my god." And I'm like, "What's about to happen to me?"
You're like, I took the extra one. Now that was Glenn that was standing there in his underwear. Is that correct?
No, no, no,
And you
not
took a whole
yet.
nother pill, right? You're like, I took a 4th
Yeah.
one. Why is this guy standing
Oh,
here in
yeah.
his underwear?
Yeah. So, yeah. But, no, we lay down on the mattress. They got the tribal music playing in the background. You got your, eyes are covered and everything like that. And I just remember the doctor keep coming by and tap me on the shoulder. Everything okay? Like, yeah, I don't feel nothing yet. He come by, and then one time he came by, and they always talk about the buzzing you get before. I did not get any buzzing. I got hit just out of nowhere, and I was in the void. It was complete darkness, and it was just me and the medicine. And yeah, it was. I can still see it. It was just like eyes and a figure floating, and it was just like, "I'm ibogaine. Are you ready for your journey?" And we went. We saw good things. We saw bad things. I mean, I don't even. I can't even make sense of some of the stuff we saw. I never will probably, but I will tell you, I made a big mistake on the medicine. Um, I actually started arguing with it. It it wanted to show me something, and I said, "There is no way. I don't want to see any part of that." And it said, "You're going," and I'm hard headed, like as we've proven before. But it beat me into submission. I remember being in the fetal position, just being like, "Jesus, please come save me," you know. Um, and then it went back to being a okay experience after that. It had to beat me into submission. Um, anyways, so you know, the gray day, Wednesday, the two of us were down. We were the last ones up. We were down. We missed supper and everything. We went straight to our beds and tried to sleep Wednesday night. Didn't really get a whole lot of it. Still kind of, just scared, anxious, whatever. Just I mean, you just got your butt kicked. Um, so, anyways, Thursday breakfast, we get up, go eat breakfast, and here comes the 5-MeO, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to do anything else. After the ass kicking I just took. I don't know if I want to do anything else, but I felt so bad that Thursday morning still that when I went up there for that bufo, I they're just like, surrender, surrender, just let it happen. Just let it happen. Don't fight it. And I didn't fight a second of it. I learned what happened on the ibogaine, what happened when you fought. I was not fighting the 5-MeO. So, the 5-MeO for me, it was it was crazy because it was just a circle closed in, a circle closed in. There was blackness, and then a nuke went off, and it just started disintegrating my body. And I just said, you know what, take me. And it disintegrated my whole body, and then it went to complete darkness again, just the blackest black darkness. You can't even imagine it. And I just started hearing this breath, just inhale, exhale. And I just knew, nothing was said or anything. I didn't see anything. I just knew it was God's presence. It was his breath. And that was it. I stayed 11 minutes in his presence. Nothing said, just pure darkness and breath. And it was, I can't even explain the peaceful bliss that it brought. And it polished everything off, man. It was amazing. And then I went outside overlooking the ocean. They gave me a bowl of fruit, and I wish I could experience that bowl of fruit for the rest of my life. That was the best bowl of fruit I've ever had in my life, man.
It's amazing, right? You tasted like, wow, that is incredible. How did I not know mango tasted so good?
Oh, dude, for me, it was the pineapple.
Apple, that was the one that stood out to you?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible, man. What an amazing story. So yeah, I mean, when we were talking to Scott last week or a couple weeks ago, he was telling me his story, and he said, man, between the ibogaine and the 5-MeO, he was like, if I had my phone, I was calling an Uber and I was getting out of here, and I was running away. I wasn't doing another medicine dosage. He said after that first day, he was done. It was it. He goes, that's why they take your phone from you.
We woke up that Thursday morning, and the only thought in my head was, not only did I ruin my life, I brought him down here and ruined his too. Because we shared a room, and that was all I could think was like, I'm so much worse than when I came here. Because I mean that ibogaine takes a lot out of you, you know, um, and that's all I could think was I just ruined both of our lives forever, you know. Um, yeah, I felt so bad about it.
So it's
Yeah.
essential that you have the second day then, yes? The 5-MeO, the
The
bufo.
5-MeO, I'm not saying that it wouldn't have that the ibogaine eventually we wouldn't have, you come off of it, get better or, whatever. But yeah, the 5-MeO just brought everything together and it was I don't see how you could do one without the other.
Yeah, I think that's that sounds pretty consistent with everyone else's story as well. After the ibogaine experience, everything's destroyed, and then after the 5-MeO, everything is recreated and beautiful.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
so,
Oh yeah. And
but
I can remember Scott that Thursday morning, since you brought him up. I remember everyone we all ate breakfast. Everybody left the breakfast table, and I stayed. Me and Scott stayed there for whatever reason. My hands were shaking. I was still scared, and he just looks at me. He was like, "Me too, brother." He was like, I get it. Me too."
he was right there with you. He could sense.
Oh yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, dude, we're in the same
Hmm.
spot. We don't even need to
Yeah.
say
Yep.
anything. We just needed to
Yep.
validate that real quick."
Absolutely.
So, Glenn, tell us about your journey and experience with it. What were you expecting? And did you have any expectations? I know you were going down to help Nick, and but was it what you thought it was going to be, or was it something different?
So I probably out of everyone that was there, the six of us, I knew the least, if you will. I was just trusting, moving forward, trying to find a good answer here. And so when we went to that sweat lodge, I mean, it ended up being a very good thing, although it was hot and you sweated out, however many pounds, and they gave you some kind of tea mix, they called it, that was the most horrible thing I ever put in my mouth. But it ended up being a very good thing to kind of cleanse you and get you ready for this intense thing that I didn't know was coming.
If there is such a word, right? I don't know that you could ever really be ready,
Now,
but if,
great, yeah, I totally. So, so kind of the same thing, we went through the individual meetings and group meetings and everything, and when we started taking, I call them the horse pills, the ibogaine treatment. Um, After the second one, I could kind of start feeling it. And I remember Slider walked up to me. It was between the second and third pill, and he goes, "Hey, just so you know, you being an older guy, this thing's probably going to hurt more and last longer in you." And I thought, okay, that would have been a handy piece of information, two
maybe you
pills
should have
there.
led with that. That would have helped me out a lot. I'm
Yeah,
like, I would have probably taken my time on the pill progression.
yeah. But anyway, took the other two pills, got upstairs. By the time we got upstairs, I was feeling it. And I went straight to laying down. I didn't put on a mask. I didn't do any of the chanting stuff or look in the mirror or anything that they wanted you to do. I laid down. Um, and it started affecting me pretty quickly. And it was, at first, it was just these psychedelic colors that were just floating, in my brain, or what I was seeing. Um, I got sick immediately, started throwing up, and I did that all the way through until Wednesday, until they finally gave me some medicine to settle my stomach down a little bit. So that part was horrendous. But I wasn't long on the treatment, on the journey, if you will. And the first thing I felt was I injured the back of my neck back here, the base of my head. I used to get horrible headaches from it, and I literally was like out of my body. It's like somebody took a welding stick and welded the back of my head here, and I could see it. And then when that finished, my TBIs, were here and here in my head, and then it starts like a construction zone in my head, literally. And I kept trying to move because the sound, I could sense it was, up and to my right. So I kept trying to move my head to try to figure out where this construction was at. somewhere in the night, I finally figured out it was the ibogaine inside of my head, starting to fix things. Yeah, the next morning, like I said, it was a horrible night. I couldn't hardly function, constantly sick. Um, I finally got up. I think they got me up around 10 o'clock because I had to take an IV, or we all had to take an IV, and they finally got one in me about 10 the next morning. And like Nicholas said, I laid there all day long, and somewhere that afternoon, they literally walked me down and put me in bed. And I slept okay Thursday night. And, when the two of us woke up Thursday morning, we were both looking at each other like, what in the world did we just do? And so Thursday was a pretty tough day. Cause I don't remember much of Wednesday, to be honest with you.
Did you know that Nick felt like he had ruined your life on that day?
No,
That's the first time you've heard that?
yeah, no, and we were both not talking a whole lot to each other.
There wasn't much to say, right?
Mm-mm.
I tell people the ibogaine takes your brain out of your head, throws it on the floor, and stomps on it a few times. And then when you do the 5-MeO DMT of the Bufo, it picks it up, chromes it, and then polishes it and puts it back.
That's right. It's right. That's like a sander and then a buffer. Like you get the
Yeah.
wax on, you get to
That's
tear
it.
it up over here, and then you buff it out over here.
So anyway, when we get ready for the 5-MeO treatment, one of the guys that was with us, he was really freaked out about it, and it was making me nervous because I had no idea. I had not done that research, and so I didn't know what to expect. Anyway, he went first. This other guy went first, and when he went up, he was legs shaking and all, and when he came down, he was skipping like a kid. And so I thought, and I was going second, and so I thought, well, okay, this has got to be pretty good. So I go up, and they told us about the ego death, and I understood it, but I didn't understand it. So when I took the 5-MeO treatment, um, I mean, I laid back, and instantly it was just like this dark, black, gray explosion in my face, and I can remember I came up fighting, and then I remembered what they had told us to let it go, and when I let it go, I went from that to blue skies, floating on cloud nine. I tell people I don't know what heaven looks like, or feels like, but if it's anything like that, I damn sure want to go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I stayed out for probably, I don't know, somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes, and I could feel my body and my mind kind of clearing and wanting to come back, and I didn't want to leave. I mean, I literally wanted to stay right where I was. So when I woke up, Nicholas was going third. They had told us, don't say anything to the other guys, let them have the experience, So when I came downstairs, he was nervous, and I could feel him eyeballing me, and I wouldn't look at him. I just kept looking away, but I'm in this euphoric feeling. And I don't remember the fruit so much. I remember the color of the plants and the flowers. Yeah, it was almost like they were glowing with a light or something. And I stood outside, looking over the Pacific and on that hillside, and just lasted probably another hour of just one of the best feelings you ever had in your life. And I told you about as things progressed Friday morning, the experience that Nicholas and I had, and therefore, I think both of us were just on solid ground, feeling very well. I don't have any of the issues I used to have. My headaches, if I've had 3 or 4 headaches in a year is a lot. If I've taken 30 Advil in a year is a lot. Where, I'd have 5 headaches and 30 Advil in less than a week, so it's been very good. And the sleeping, being in crowds, scanning, being anxious, I don't really have any of that anymore. So I remember everything that I went through, but it just doesn't affect me like it used to.
So would you say this this program they have is a cure, or was it a solution or a way to start people on the fixing of these types of things? Because I know that there's a lot of people talking right now about the Veterans Administration reevaluating people for being better than they were.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, medically, I don't know enough about it to say if it's a cure or not. I know it's a game changer. I will tell you that. I think it would be, um, awful for the VA to do that, um, to reevaluate people based on this treatment that is not legal in our country. It's still a Schedule One narcotic, and the VA won't even give it the time of day. They're willing to shove pills to you on top of pills, on top of pills, on top of pills, and have you talk to psychologists and psychiatrists in the most case that they have no basis for where you've been or the ground you've walked on, and they want to try to help you, but they don't understand how to help you. And so, in my opinion, so again, I don't know if it's a cure. It certainly is a game changer from the people that I've talked to and experienced. Now, depending on your trauma, I think for me and Nicholas, it was a one and done. Or I'll speak for myself. A year later, for me, is a one and done treatment. If I felt like I needed it again, I'd go tomorrow. I don't want to do it again, but I would absolutely go tomorrow and do it. For people, Scott being one of them, they have to go back for a second time, maybe a third time, but eventually, I think you get to what right looks like and what normalcy looks like. Um, so
I
that,
found
that
Scott's story very interesting about that. He actually went back for the second time, but did not do the buffo the second night.
really, yeah, I had not heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, he did the ibogaine, which he told me, he described his scenario just like you guys did. And it was, obviously he wasn't a fan of it. He was like, I would have called a Uber the next day and been out of there if I had my phone. I wanted to go so bad. But then he went back a year later and he did the ibogaine. And he said he didn't need to do the buffo experience and that he got what he needed from the ibogaine. So it was really interesting that, it
Yeah.
was such a big spin there because most people don't
Yeah.
pass on the buffo. Like
No,
that's
Right.
no, I tell people all the time, if you offer me beer right now, I'm in.
exactly. That's
That's
like,
that's
no,
one of the
I
best
like that
experiences
place.
I've.
I'm happy to go there
Uh,
anytime.
yeah, just let me
I,
find a coffee place that I can lay back.
I felt the same way. I was this 5-MeO takes you to, if that's what's after we die, I am great with that. Like I am
Okay.
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
great with that. Took all the fear, all the intimidation of all, everybody I think has some sort of uncertainty about death, but I know for me it was a real problem. And now after my 5-MeO experience, man, I came back like, nope, we're good. We're real good. Like whether I'm here or whether I'm there, I'm good. I'm great. I love this idea. So it kind of gave me some peace in that sense. Nick, tell me when you were down there, like, what were you thinking when you were walking up there? Did you notice a difference in your dad coming down the stairs on that second day
Yeah,
with his? You didn't see it.
man,
He hit it so
he
well. He gave you the.
he kept such a straight face
He
that
was
I
smiling
mean,
on the inside. He's like,
yeah, just completely straight face, looking the other way, and I was like, it is almost like, wait, was yours not as
oh,
good as his, the other guys?
you get the
You know,
placebo.
because the guy that the one that went first was also the guy that was, standing in his britches when we did the ABBA game. And when he says he was skipping, I mean grinning from ear to ear, floating,
Just
just like arms
riding
out,
across the room.
floating. I mean, just it was. I was like, oh, I want some of that.
And your dad wasn't floating. So
No,
you were like,
he kept it together, and then whenever I came down, he was still outside, and he just looked at me and was like, "Mm-hmm."
full circle from the truck, and the curtains opening the airbags. I mean, from there to when you guys were standing out there looking at the ocean, noticing the boats and the trees and the details. I mean, that probably was like its own life in and of itself, just that window of time.
It was
Yeah.
crazy because the first few days looking out over the ocean, the island was just a dark silhouette. It was water and then a dark silhouette out there, and then to wake up Friday morning and I can see trees, I can see the dirt, I can see buildings, you know, the boats. I'm like, wow, like it's that quick that you know, that you get that. And you know, and I didn't mention it, but you know, kind of like he said, he had a construction site in his head. You know, where I got hit in the back of the head was my I got hit in the back of the head was my, you know, TBI, and then I'd get headaches along the side of my head. The back of my head just it got hot, just fire hot, you know, and it felt like somebody was massaging my brain back there, and then the sides were just vibrating all night, you know, and then it's just that ibogaine does amazing things, you know. You're going on this experience, and it's rough, or at least for us, you know, it was a rough experience, but
Mm.
you know, the profound benefits from it, man. I'd do it
Yeah.
again tomorrow. I plan on doing it again at some point in my life. You know,
Well, and we know that
you
it
know,
worked really well for you because when we first got on the video today, you had the most light I've ever seen in a video ever. and,
yeah,
and obviously that was the light was not your friend until after the situation. So I had to tell you to make it darker in your room, and that's probably
yeah.
not something you've ever heard.
Oh yeah, man. I'm telling you, you know, and pre-ibogaine, just I think the worst part that I still think about is I had a 2 and a 3-year-old, and they just had to learn for a whole year to live in quiet and in darkness. You know, and if they were going to do something, you know, trick or treating, you know, any birthday parties, they went with mom. You know, dad stayed home. And you know, I didn't even know this until recently, but apparently my oldest daughter would go meet people at the door and be like, you know, daddy's
Really?
head, you know, when people would come in the house, you know. So um
Wow.
for
Yeah, that's
them,
hard to hear,
yeah,
right? That's hard to hear, but
yeah,
also it's good to hear because you made it out of it,
it's
and now
amazing.
you're
You
not
know, I'm thankful they were young enough to where they don't really remember that, you
right.
know, and that won't stick with them. But yeah, I'm so thankful for the healing, you know, just I'm back, you know. They have a dad.
Right. That's right.
That's
So
it.
now when you guys had that moment out there in the looking out over the ocean, did you guys decide then that you're going to come back and help save other vets' lives and get people down there and Awaken Warriors was built then, or did you come back and
You
how
know,
did that go? How did that come together?
I can remember we flew back and we were in the truck driving through Texas. We weren't even in Louisiana yet. And I just looked over and I was like we got to do something. We got to help. And he was like, absolutely, we're gonna. And
Yeah.
you know, we kind of sat on it for a little bit just to make sure that these were lasting effects, you know. Um, and then you know, once we hit, I don't even remember, somewhere between the 4 to 6 month mark of still,
Yeah.
you know, having the benefits of being of this healing, you know, it was like, all right, let's hit the ground running. We don't know what we're gonna do. We don't know how we're gonna do it. This is all new ground, but let's go. You know,
That's right.
uh,
Yeah.
The effort and the intensity and the sincerity is there. So let's do it and to see what happens, right? See how it unravels and unfolds. So I
Yeah.
yeah,
mean,
that's it.
Glenn, what was your perspective on that? Were you ready to help people right away? Obviously, that's all you've ever done in your life is help make people's lives better, you know, through disasters. And this obviously is one of those types of situations. So did you have a vision of Awakened Warriors? Was it something that you saw?
Yeah. I think on that Friday, I mean, we were talking, but we weren't talking a lot because I think we were still in this unbelievable stage of what it had done for us, you know, euphoric almost. But I was certainly having thoughts of, you know, this is not something that I can sit on. I mean, I've got to get back and we've got to figure out how do we help um, people that have gone through traumatic experiences, regardless of what they are, to try to get their lives back and make themselves whole and make their families whole. And like Nicholas said, I mean, we traveled back to San Diego. We got on a plane. We flew back to Houston, and then we drove back into central Louisiana, about a 4 hour drive. And there was just not a lot of conversation. I think we were still trying to soak in what we had just experienced for that week. And like you said, along the way, he brought it up, and I was like, absolutely, we do. But also, what he just said, you know, we wanted to make sure, I mean, we talked about it a lot, over the few months, but I've I felt very strongly, we both felt very strongly that we needed to give ourselves time to make sure that this thing stuck and that it wasn't just a temporary short-term fix. And, we went back to where we were, or he went back to where he was. And so after a few months, then we started talking about, um, where we would take this thing and what we would do to try to help people. And for me, you know, I go back to kind of my story, the thousands of young kids that soldiers primarily that we sent overseas, and the after effects of that, and the fact that I've been through more disasters in Louisiana than you can almost count, and along the Gulf Coast and in Central America and whatever, that our first responders, I've watched the toll that it takes on them during those events, much less what they live with day to day. And so what I told Nicholas I'd like to try to do is set up an organization, a nonprofit, that would address Louisiana combat veterans and Louisiana first responders initially, so that we can start raising funds towards that with this Awaken Warriors program. But I'm hopeful, that after we get out of a crawl phase and start walking a little bit, and a lot of that's going to be driven by funding. Are people willing to donate to this cause to help fix people that have taken care of them, if you will, or defended them, in the last couple of decades? But I'm not opposed to eventually we go outside of Louisiana, because I'll try to help any person anywhere that I can that's had a traumatic experience to try to get them fixed. So that's where the basis of Awaken Warriors has come from. I would tell you that we're on the verge, as you know, of releasing our website. That Nicholas and one of the local companies here have done a lot of good work on, and to try to help tell the story, get our notices out there. Simultaneously, I've got a couple of good friends. One's in our legislature, one's a lobbyist, and then we have a state senator, that have all agreed to sponsor legislation in Louisiana. Our governor has kind of given it the thumbs up, but to sponsor legislation in Louisiana to do, clinical trials, so that we can, in a medical setting or in a clinic, so that we can start building the protocols here in the U.S. and working with Americans for Ibogaine. With that organization, they asked me to be an ambassador. Texas has already approved $50 million last year. There are about 27 states that are in some phase of trying to get through the clinical trials. But hopefully, we can get the thing off of the Schedule 1 narcotics, and get it into medical providers' hands, into clinics, medical professionals, so that we can hopefully insurance or the VA or whatever can start trying to help take care of these folks, like I said, that have taken care of us for a long time. But in the meantime, the Awaken Warriors program is to try to raise money, because it is expensive to go for these treatments in Mexico or wherever you choose to go. But to raise money so that we can start one person at a time, trying to help heal them, and get them back to normalcy, and hopefully their families and their life in general. So that's the future direction that we're headed.
Yeah.
That's
And
really,
if I could, I'd like to add, we're looking more than just the ibogaine and the 5-MeO. As we've gotten into this, we've learned more of all the plant medicines. We're actually in talks of trying to get a psilocybin retreat together, possibly towards the end of the year. I'm not going to talk too much on that because it's not certain. But and then also outside of Louisiana veterans, first responders, we've made some very good connections to all kinds of nonprofits that help people of all walks of life. So anybody that comes to us with an issue, if we can't personally do anything, we will direct you and we'll point you in the right direction. We're not just going to turn you away because we can't help you. No, we're going to help you however we can, even if that's just sending you to somebody else and help making that connection. So I just wanted to add that, it's more than just the ibogaine. It's all the plant medicines, and we're learning as we go. But I
Yeah,
just want to throw that out there too.
yeah, I agree. I mean, there seems to be numerous opportunities in this psychedelic world, if you will, and it's more of a treatment to me. It's not a drug that can help people, and because of what we were able to do and the way that it helped us, we have a huge calling to just try to help other people, and I don't care what their background is. I don't care where they come from. The only thing I would say is if you can afford to pay for it yourself and go, then you probably don't need money out of our nonprofit or any of the other nonprofits. I would recommend you go, and I'll help you get there. But what we're focused at is those people that were on the front line of whatever it was that they went through, and that financially maybe they can't get there, and hopefully we will have the opportunity to help them get there or recommend them to someone that can help them get there. This now for me becomes a pay forward type thing, um, as we move through this nonprofit and try to get this legislation going.
What do you think will be the situation? Let's say they do start studying the ibogaine. I know a lot of people are talking about ibogaine as being, and like you said, 27 states have already begun working on things. But I don't ever hear the follow up with the 5-MeO. Are people planning on using them together? And do you think one would be independently successful without the other?
I don't. I would, based on my experience, it would be a far stretch for me to say just the ibogaine by itself without the 5-MeO behind it to do the things that we previously discussed. Um, I, I think that the ibogaine is the big hurdle. As I appreciate it, just talking to the Americans for ibogaine and the other people that have been involved in this process is this Schedule 1 piece. But I would tell you that my bigger thought is that's why we have to do clinical trials. We've got to get enough states to put money towards it and can build a consortium, if you will, of people that can amass millions of dollars to get the clinical trials going, and then people like me step back and look at the medical professionals to go, yeah, here are the protocols that we need to go through, and here's how we need to apply them, and here's what right looks like, and then we're going to have to adopt that, and then go to Congress, hopefully by that time, to get this thing off Schedule 1 narcotics and get it in the true medication. I don't want to call it a pharmaceutical, but get it into the medical cycle and start providing treatments for people.
You think it'll be a long time process? Like, I know that they legalize medical marijuana in a lot of states, but it's still a criminal infraction, a Schedule 1 narcotic for veterans. And I know when I go to the VA, they treat me like a drug addict because I have a prescription for medical marijuana. And it's been, I don't even know, 10 years I've had this thing now. So I'm like, are we going to ever catch up on this thing and actually, like, because it's very confusing when you're in a state where it's legal and it's prescribed to you and you think you're doing the right thing. But then at the same time, you go to the VA and they're still federal. So therefore it's still a crime.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a natural resistance, change, dramatic change like this, what the results that we've seen or I've seen, I think is hard for people to understand and accept. And when more, probably more my generation, as soon as you say yeah, it's a Schedule 1, I mean they turn you off immediately, and so I think it's going to be a learned process. We're going to have to communicate this over and over and over and over again. I think that the clinical trials, it's probably a 5 to 8 year process if we're lucky. But we've started that process. People before us have started that process. We've joined them, and so we just have to stay the course. Because if we get to the point where we can save one life, just one, then all the toil and sweat equity is worth it. Hopefully it's way beyond that. It's hundreds or thousands or whatever. that we can eventually impact their lives on a positive way. I mean, you have to remember, within our veteran community, I hear varying numbers between 17 and 22 veterans kill themselves every day.
Yes, sir.
That's acceptable for me. I
That's a
have no
crazy
idea.
number.
I have no idea what our first responder number is, but I know it exists. I know if it's one, it's too many. And so anything we can do to close that circle, keep it from happening, and like I said, just give people quality of life again and enjoyment, then we have to do that, or I feel like we do it.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's
Yeah.
even optional anymore. After you go through 5-MeO, you experience like love unconditionally on a whole new level, and you can't not experience that again. You can't go back to the other way you were. All you want to do is help everyone else to experience something similar to what you had. And you just now you care on a different level, which, is a really cool thing because it really does kind of make such an impact that you can't not go help people, which is why so many people are really adamant about making this difference in the world. And I agree, one person would be worth it all. 22 to 44 a day is what they say these days, and if it's 44 based on drugs and alcohol deaths that they don't count.
Well,
And they say one military spouse every 8 days commits suicide as well. So we're talking about, I mean, to me, these numbers are crazy numbers for us not to have a front page every day of, oh, let's talk about this, let's fix this. But I think you're right. I mean, once you've gone there and experienced it, and it's important too. Your generation, like you said, are the first ones to be anti Schedule One narcotic, right? You're like, no, that's definitely bad for you. So how do we get that message out to people that they can go do what you guys did together? Which, to me, I give you guys all the credit in the world to have a father-son relationship like that, where your dad's willing to step out, Nick, and come with you and support you on something that a lot harder for his generation. Heck, my generation is real resistant to this stuff. So, like, he was probably like, all right, I'm going to go on this thing. But, and after the ibogaine the first day, you were probably wishing you did, right? You're like, I wish I wouldn't have ruined my dad's life too.
But yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much how I felt.
Yeah.
So, now that Awaken Warriors has been born, and here we go, we're going to go off and change as many lives as possible. You guys have demographics or statistics on the amount of people that have been in Louisiana through these disasters? Because as you talked about, I mean, Katrina was a huge natural disaster, but also the troops going out there. And I know for a lot of people, they want to get away from the place where the trauma began. So, like,
Right.
will you be able to reach a lot of the people and the families that you were once helping with their issues and situations, or do you think those people have branched out and that's kind of why you want to keep it open to everywhere?
Yeah. So I would tell you, in Louisiana, there's north of 300,000 veterans that live in Louisiana, combat military veterans. Of that, I would tell you, probably because where we've been the last 20 years or 25 years now, that percentage of combat veterans is probably somewhere around 30%, maybe higher when you put in the Vietnam veterans that are out there. So there's a huge capacity, and that's why for me, and as I talked to Nicholas, I didn't want to go outside Louisiana yet, because we've got people in our own backyard that we can hopefully help and reach. The number of first responders that were affected by the disasters and the things that they do day to day. I mean, I don't have that number. I will tell you that we've met with our Sheriff's Association in Louisiana, our Municipal Police Officers Association, the Firefighters Association, the District Attorney Association, all the legislation that we're putting forward, and no one has. Most of them are taking a very supportive, providing us help with the legislation that we're working on. They're willing to work with us on profit to help us stand it up, get the message out. So I really haven't gotten any pushback from anyone yet that's in that community, veterans, first responder community. So after we, like I said earlier, after we get up and get moving, and we get some funding that we can start helping people, I certainly I think we would be ready, willing, and able to try to help anyone, anywhere. And it goes outside the communities. If you get into drug addictions, alcoholism, sexual traumas, I mean, I'm okay. How am I gonna go? Yeah, you qualify. You don't. If you need the help, you need the help, right? And if we can provide that resource through some means, whether it's us or somebody else, then why would we not do that?
That's a very good point. It shouldn't be limited to people that you
No.
qualify.
Right.
Like, how
No.
are you gonna gauge the level of trauma another human
Yeah.
had?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. If you
being
need help, we're here to help.
and that's such an amazing thing. And man, having you guys as a father-son, 2 different generations go have your experiences and then have those intertwined and come back and both of you had nothing but passion for the same exact thing. And so like that just show I mean, I'm gonna guess that you guys were probably in different places prior, mentally, physically, all the things. And now
Right.
you're in exactly the same place with the same exact goals and the same exact vision. And I think that's just an amazing testimonial to how much that stuff really does make a difference. And this
Yeah.
is what
And, it's incredible. Oh, sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead,
you're good.
Nicholas.
Well, I was just going to say, like we went to an event for Americans for Ibogaine, and a lot of those people have been through this. And it's just the people you meet that have been through all of this stuff, man. Everyone's genuine. Everyone's here to help. There's no
Yeah,
bullshit. Like,
yeah,
there's no jealousy, there's no greed, just how can we all work together to help, and everybody's helping each other. And it's just it's a fantastic community. I can't talk enough about it. The plant medicine community is just so genuine and real.
yeah. It is, and I echo that. I mean, no one's trying to grow their reputation, build their reputation, make money off of this that I've ran across or we've run across. So it is a good community. But I would go back and tell you that, yeah, Nicholas and I and my other son, me and my kids are close. We always have been. But this experience has kind of bonded me and Nicholas a lot more to each other for a common cause to go try to do good, if you or help people out. But as an extension of that, our families, our immediate families, and our extended families see the difference. I mean, I see it particularly in Nicholas. I don't know what everybody sees in me, but I know everybody sees it in him and the change. And so, our wives are very supportive of this. We haven't convinced them to get on a podcast yet or to do any kind of public speaking or anything, but we'll probably get there. But then my 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 mother, my father-in-law that are still living are very supportive. The rest of our kids are supportive. So we now have we always had a strong network with family and friends, but I would tell you now it's even stronger, and they have enough confidence in us to take what probably prior was a crazy idea and you wouldn't even think about doing it and going, yeah, there's nothing but goodness that comes out of this. And so we're going to put our shoulder to the wheel and help you all we can.
I would love to have that podcast. I would love to talk to the spouses behind the scenes to hear their version of the story. Nick, you mentioned earlier that your wife was she's very happy now that you've been through this, right? Like this was a big game changer in
Absolutely.
your relationship as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I was down, it went from, I mean, she was the only one working. While she was working, she was taking care of me and 2 young kids, um, which of course, I mean, itself is stressful, it's frustrating. She doesn't understand what's going on. She kept referring to, the Jackass movie. She's like, those guys hit their head all the time. They seem fine. You know, what's wrong with you? And I was like,
Yeah,
I
but they're
don't
not
have answers.
fine. I mean, let's look at them. They're not fine.
Yeah, yeah, for real. But she's like, what's going on? Like, it's the worst part about the TBI, and PTSD to add to it. But the TBI it's not a visible injury. They don't understand. Nobody can understand what's going on in your head. Um, so yeah, she is ecstatic that I
She's
am.
good now.
That I'm feel like that I came back in this condition. You know,
Yeah.
And
I would
Glenn, your
I
wife
would
as
tell
well?
you, yeah, so my wife, I mean, she start off with she knows I'm crazy, so, that some there's a level of acceptance over 40 years probably, but, I mean, she sees the change in me and has seen the change in me, but as a mother to Nicholas, she is, like, on cloud 9 to know that her son ha has had this treatment and the cure that came out of I would tell you we'd been home probably a week, and, I don't even remember where we were, but, I leaned over to Alex and said, "Alex, how's Nicholas doing? How you doing? What are you thinking about this?" So lines, and she looked up at me and she said, "I have my husband back, and my kids have their father back." And I thought, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." So,
Yeah, that's about as cool as it gets right there. I mean,
that
that's
is a good yeah,
oh
and I
yeah,
yeah,
and I you can't say you'll never go back there, Glenn, because, you've got other kids, and let's hope they don't get hit. You may wanna put them in football helmets or something, that way you can run around. God forbid another 10 injury happens and you have to go down with your other son or your daughter to the MBO. So, put them in an LSU helmet.
yeah,
They just
there you
have to
I would
go,
walk
there
around.
you
I would
go.
I would gladly do it, so, yeah,
So all this change, and now you get to change other people's lives. I think that's what it's all about, and that's really kind of what we've got to do. And as you guys said, I mean, I grow and learn from every person I come in contact with, and I'm forever a student and forever a servant to anyone who needs me. And I know you guys are exactly the same way. I'm so grateful to get to know you guys. To hear your stories is amazing. To get to share them with the world is even more amazing. And I just can't wait to continue to working together, making a difference in this number, this crazy, astronomical, absurd number that needs to get brought down. And if we can only do it by one person, it will be worth it. It will be so much worth it. And I don't know about you
100%.
guys. I can't imagine doing anything else ever again now except helping other people. And I gauge now my level of success in life based on the number of people I'm able to help. That's what my success was. Used to be titles, used to be money, used to be status, used to be belongings. Now it's just quite simply, I'd like to help as many people as I possibly can before I leave this planet. And what
yeah,
if we
Yeah,
all had that attitude? What if we all lived that way? Wouldn't the world
yeah,
be amazing? And so I think that's kind of like we've got to set that pace and trend. And I know that a lot of what do they say? You plant the seeds of a tree, not so you can sit in the shade, but so future generations can, right? And that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, Glenn. You were mentioning that we may not ever see the benefits of what we're doing, but it may start a revolution, right? One match can start a forest fire.
that's
So
right.
we've got to go with that kind of thought process. And I think this is a great start. We certainly are going to have you back on the show again after we get you guy up and running. And a year from now, we'll do a follow up just to make sure everybody's good. Nick
yeah.
hasn't hit his head anymore, and had any more.
Well, I know what to do if it happens.
That's right. You've got the solution, right? So anybody needs
That's
to know
it.
how to fix it, we've got the answer. Just contact us. Well,
That's
I
it.
thank you guys very much. Is there anything else you'd like to say? I know you guys have your website coming up this month. So is that awakenwarriors.org? Is that where they would find you?
It'll be awakenwarriors.com.
.com.
Awaken War
Will be the website. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't
It's a
really
great
have a
name,
whole
by the
lot
way.
more to add.
Yeah, Chris, I'd just like to thank you for having us on
Absolutely.
your podcast, spending time with us, and helping us try to get this message out. And I would also give you a standing offer. I think from both of us that if we could give this to you in any way to help people through this process and help them get back whole, we're certainly available. We're in this thing for the right reason, and that's just to try to help people. So we appreciate what you're doing. We appreciate you being with us and allowing us this audience.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And thank you for the gratitude, because obviously all gratitude goes a long way in life. And obviously, my friends that are in the plant medicine business, everyone wants to stay in the shadows. And I get
Yeah,
it, I get it. But also, if nobody steps out front and does the podcast and does the interviews, then nobody knows about the information. And so I guess I'm the lucky volunteer that, is out front having to do the long conversations and such. But I really enjoy it. You guys inspire me, you motivate me, and I hope I do as well for other people. And this show, hopefully, it makes a difference out there. So this is going to go on for a long time, I have no doubt, and we're going to make a big difference in these numbers in the world. So let's
Absolutely.
keep doing what we're doing, keep partnering up, keep working together, and we will stop this entire epidemic. I know that for sure.
Absolutely.